Jim McGibney, thank you. This is a special treat today because of the nature of our speaker, the National Television Network, Cable Network, C-SPAN. Steve Scully is C-SPAN Senior Executive Producer and Political Editor. He is the former president of the White House Correspondents Association, 2006-2007, and was recently elected to serve a 3-year term as WHCA board member. Since 1990, Steve has been responsible for the planning and editing of all campaign programming, including presidential and congressional elections, for the Public Affairs Cable Network. In 2006, he designed and launched C-SPAN's new site for politics. In addition, he manages a team of field producers responsible for coverage of the White House and special projects. Beginning in January 2003, Steve assumed the Amos P. Hostetler Chair at the University of Denver, teaching a distance learning course on the media, politics, and public policy issues via cable fiber line from Washington, D.C. He also includes Pace University in New York and George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia in that teaching program. It's the only college-level course of its kind in the country, linking students to leaders in politics, journalism, and business from our nation's capital. Guests have included NBC's Brian Williams, Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, former Speaker Newt Gingrich, and former Senator Bob Dole. In the December 2003 edition of Cable Facts magazine, he was listed as one of cable's 100 heavy hitters. And in January 2004, New York's Newsday listed Steve Scully, along with Tim Russert, Katie Couric, Peter Jennings, and Bob Schaefer, as one of the nation's most influential movers and shakers in political programming. C-SPAN's campaign coverage earned the network a 2004 Emmy and a 1992 Cable Ace Award, the industry's highest honor. Please let's welcome Steve Scully to Denver Rotary.
You know, I love it when you get that introduction and I'll come home and tell my wife, hey, I got this award, or hey, I won this, and she says, great, take out the garbage. And I do come from a large family, and I wasn't going to say this, but since you brought it up, we're Catholic, and there are 5 sets of twins in our family. 4 sets of twins, 3 singles, another set of twins, and 3 more singles, so 13 living. And one day the bishop came over to our house and talked to my mom and dad and said, what do I tell people who wonders, how does the Scully family have so many kids? And he said, Your Eminence, you tell them one thing. I'm either a damn good Catholic or a passionate Protestant. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I tell you, one of the first recipients award I received was a Rotary Club award of $250 when I wrote an essay of what it means to be an American. And so at a very early age, I realized what a great job you all do, and what wonderful work in feeding the homeless and taking care of the elderly and all that you do. So congratulations. I'm here to talk about C-SPAN. Hold on just a moment. From the Barack Obama campaign, we are pleased to announce his selection of a running mate. Oh, darn, my battery just died. Sorry. Anyhow, I promise I'm not going to speak too long. I don't want to get gonged, so I'll keep it to at least an hour. No, I'm just kidding. The last time the Democrats came to this great city was in 1908. William Jennings Bryan was the nominee for the 3rd time. He went on to lose that election, so we're finally glad to come back 100 years later to the great city. If you've seen the white tents over by the Pepsi Center, we are in one of those white tents. We're still trying to help the city fix the leak that we have in the roof, but otherwise we're glad to be here. We're hoping for no rain. And let me say at the outset, Barack Obama should win this election if you look at history. And at the outset, John McCain very much can win this election. It is one for the history books, and I say that with looking at all the polls and all the information, and I don't know who the running mates are going to be for John McCain or Barack Obama, but I would tell you one thing. Then in 2000, nobody predicted Dick Cheney. And so I would tell you that if everyone is saying it's going to be Joe Biden, expect it to be Hillary Clinton or Evan Bayh or somebody else that we haven't talked about. And the same with John McCain. But the running mates will be very important. We should know probably within the next 24 hours, if not sooner, who the running mate is. But let me talk about C-SPAN very briefly. I have a couple of clips. I'm not going to show all of them, but I really want to take some of your questions. We are now 30 years old. We are completely funded by the cable industry. We get about 5.5 cents per month per cable subscriber, and that allows us to fund C-SPAN, C-SPAN 2, and C-SPAN 3. The vision behind the network is Brian Lamb. And if you want to understand what C-SPAN is all about, you have to travel to Lafayette, Indiana. because on Market Street are all the stores and businesses, and on Church Street are all the churches. C-SPAN is a very straight down the middle, no nonsense, meat and potatoes type of a network. We have a reach of about 92 million homes. We're seen worldwide on the Armed Forces Network. And we have a very simple premise, and the premise that extends to what I do with the students at the University of Denver, which is to educate the American people about their democracy. We are the only network of its kind anywhere in the world. Nowhere else can you have a network that is funded by the cable industry, and I say that not as a plug to the cable industry, but just as a matter of fact. And I think if you watch our network, you'll see that we try our very best to focus on liberal and conservative, Democrat and Republican issues, and we really give the American people a chance to talk about issues that are important to them. But one of the things I do with the students in Denver is I try to teach them some history, because the mainstream media, I think, sometimes gets caught up in what I call an echo chamber. And I can tell you, as somebody who's been at the White House, and you see a group of reporters, there's an event that happens every morning. It's called a gaggle. And a gaggle is like a flock of geese gathering behind the press secretary to find out what's happening. And reporters tend to be that way very much. One of the great stories I heard was from the Deputy Chief of Staff at the White House in the Reagan administration. And his analogy was that reporters are like geese, or like birds on a telephone line. If you throw a little food down, they'll all kind of gather, and they'll all go swarm down, eat the food, and then go back up. And Bob Deaver was right. He died earlier this year. But Bob Deaver's analogy is correct, because I think if you watch the mainstream press, and we're not mainstream, we try to be different, you do hear this echo chamber. And I tell you that just as a way to watch our network in a different way, because we do try to present different points of view, different voices, and different faces. But one of the things that we've talked about this year is the change. It's a change election. Well, folks, every election is a change election. In 1976, Jimmy Carter ran Leadership for a Change. In 1980, Ronald Reagan ran on Change for America. In 1992, Bill Clinton talked about change for the country. So every presidential election is about change. So if I hear another reporter saying, well, Obama and the change message, well, that is his message. There's no question about it. But every campaign is about change. And if George Bush were running in 2008 against Al Gore, he too would be running on change. Now, I want to take you back to 1976. A lot of focus on Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, whether or not there was going to be a divided convention. We were hoping for that, to tell you the truth. We were hoping that we'd have higher ratings. But I want to take you back to, let's show you from 76 as Gerald Ford accepts his party nomination, and you'll be able to read Ronald Reagan's lips of what he says. It's quintessential Ronald Reagan. So if we could show that clip from the C-SPAN archives. Maybe. Oh, here we are. Sorry.
We Republicans have had some tough competition. We not only preach the virtues of competition, we practice them. But tonight we come together not on a battlefield to conclude a ceasefire, but to join forces on a training field that has conditioned us all for the rugged contest ahead. Let me say this from the bottom of my heart. After the scrimmages of the past few months, it really feels good to have Ron Reagan on the same side of the line.
And then on cue, he gets up. Now, I show that to you because divided parties don't win, and that's why there's been so much effort on John McCain and whether or not if he chooses a pro-choice VP like a Tom Ridge, does that divide the Republican Party? And on the Democratic side, just how solid is Hillary Clinton in place for Barack Obama? 1980, by the way, Ronald Reagan campaigned at one event, with one joint event with Gerald Ford. Ronald Reagan went right up to the convention in Kansas City. Ted Kennedy dropped out of the race on the Tuesday of the Democratic Convention in July 1980. We're not in that situation in 2008, but I wanted to give you